Oliver Bowry, candidate number 8415. So I've just been watching a badminton match, a singles match between two players, and I've picked out one of the performers that I think have shown some strengths, so skills, tactics, and fitness, some weaknesses in those areas, and I'll put it all into an action plan at the end, an action plan which I think, based on what we'll do in the plan, will kind of push their game the furthest or make them improve the most. So if we go through the strengths first, so if we go for the skill strengths, one of their big skill strengths I did see was their overhead clear. This was a good shot as there was a quick extension of their racket arm about the elbow joint, so using the biceps and triceps brachii, which sent the shuttle at a good pace to the back of the court with a good trajectory. That was going so fast the opponent that they were playing didn't have a lot of time to move into that space on court, so move into their forehand corner, for example, and be prepared to smash the shot, and it didn't go at such a low trajectory where they could just intercept it. I'd say it was probably going about a foot over the top point that the opponent could get their racket to, so that's always good. If we break it down into preparation, execution, and recovery, so if we go through the preparation stage first, in the preparation phase of the shot, the performer was sideways on towards the net and with their feet shoulder width apart. This is always good because there wasn't an even weight distribution. Their body weight was mainly focused or balanced, on their non-racket leg or their left leg, which was slightly flexed at the knee joint, which was using the biceps femoris, semimembranosus, and semitendinosus. This will more come into play in the execution and recovery stage, so I'll come on to that. Their non-racket arm or their left arm is extended at the elbow joints using kind of pointing motion, pointing towards the shuttle where they want it to go, and their racket arm was flexed at the elbow joint with their racket in scratch back position. If we move on to the execution of the shot now, there was a transfer of body weight from their left leg or their non-racket leg to their right leg, so their racket leg. While simultaneously doing this, they extended their racket arm about their elbow joint, hitting the shuttle around the 11 o'clock position, sending it to the perfect place on the court. This demonstrated a full range of movement in the shoulder, because not only did they extend their arm, they also rotated it as well, so they're coming from that position all the way around hitting the shuttle. Recovery stage, since I said there was a transfer of body weight from their left foot to their right foot, or from their non-racket leg to their racket leg, this meant that they kind of generated momentum in order to get back into their base on court, so they pushed off their left leg or their leg that was carrying the most weight, their non-racket leg, onto their racket leg, and this kind of moved them forward in court. So after he hit that shot, went through that execution phase, that transfer of body weight then led him straight back into his base or into the middle of the court, so he was able to get to the next shot. So if he was going to the net, he could play a net shot. If he was going all the way back, he was going to play a clear, he could play another clear. This just meant that it was a lot easier for him to get around, as opposed to standing in one place on court and then having to run straight forward towards the net if that was the case. Overall efficiency, the performer, the efficiency of the shot was quite good, didn't waste an awful lot of energy, as they did not play it too many times in the game, and also it was quite a quick and effective movement, so they didn't leave their racket down by their ankles in the preparation phase. As I said, they're always kind of in that ready position with one hand pointing at the shuttle and one hand in the scratch back position, so they didn't have to lift their racket all the way up and then swing it all the way forward in order to kind of use a lot of power, use a lot of energy when playing that shot. It was quite a quick movement, so they didn't use a lot of energy. End result, in most of the cases I saw the performer use the shot, he always kind of put their opponent under pressure. It's not always an entirely defensive shot. Sometimes they use it as an attacking shot as well, which is always quite good. If we move on to the next shot now, which is their net shot, this was a good shot. This was a good shot as it was an extension of their non-racket leg, when the performer could take the shot as early as possible, creating a tight spinning net shot towards the shot. This would either force an unforced error from their opponent, so if they wanted to leave the shuttle to come out of the tumble, they'd take it back and hit the net, or they'd hit a nice short lift which my performer could smash, or in the majority of the cases they'd hit the net or the shuttle would go out because they'd tried to play a shot that they clearly couldn't play. Once again, break it down into preparation, execution, and recovery. If we go through the preparation phase first, the performer stood with their racket leg towards the net in a lunge position, so it was flexed at that knee joint again, using that semimembranosus, semitendinosus, and biceps femoris. The racket was down by the side, so they can quickly move it up towards, if the shuttle was coming high enough that they could take it high. So if it wasn't a spinning net shot, they had to leave it to come out of that spin, they could take it quite highly. If it was a tight spinning net shot, they have to leave it to come out of the tumble, so if it coming out of that spin, they'd take it quite low, so that's why they left it kind of mid-range as well. The muscles used in this lunge movement, the gluteus maximus and medius, as well as the rectus femoris and 3 vastus as well, so that kind of hamstring quadricep group. In the execution phase, what the performer did is they used a slight split step, so a tiny little jump to kind of get themselves ready for the movement, use a slight chassé or crossover movement to get themselves forward on court, and then put the racket outstretched, so extended at their elbow joint again, in order to play the shuttle, and they just cut underneath it. So they either cut underneath it to give it backspin, so it just tumbled straight over the net, and as I said, force an unforced error from their opponent, or a short lift, or hitting it out. Recovery, as I said, the performer was in that lunge position, so most of their body weight was focused on their right leg, or their racket leg in this case, not their non-racket leg like in the previous shot. They used that kind of plantar flexion in their foot just to push themselves back, regain their balance on court, and then get back into their base. Everything would be about getting back into their base after they're playing the shot, either at the front or the back of the court. If we go through overall efficiency now, the performer wasn't wasting too much energy, as it was a quick movement, that kind of quick split step, 3 steps into the net, cut the shuttle 3 steps back, as opposed to an inexperienced performer, or a cognitive kind of a performer in the cognitive phase, running straight towards the net, their racket quite close to their body, take about 5 or 6 steps, get very close to the net, play their shot, and then take another 5 or 6 steps back. This is when my performer did the split step, 3 steps in, played the shot, 3 steps back, so not wasting too much energy there. End result, as I said, the shot either forced an unforced error from their opponent, a short lift, or a missed shot. If we move on to the skill weaknesses now, there were quite a few I picked out, but we'll go into kind of real depth on one. The few I picked out would be their cross-court drop, their low backhand serve, and their forehand block. But the one that I think is the biggest weakness in this case would be their backhand clear. This would be because they were not making contact with the shuttle at the right point. It would be at roughly the 10 o'clock position. So here it would send the shuttle at quite a high trajectory across the net. So the performer would always have time to get into kind of position to smash a shot, and also combined with the trajectory, it wasn't going very far at all. I think I may have seen kind of 2 or 3 cases out of the whole game, which included quite a few backhand clears where it went behind the first double service line, which is never good. And once again, breaking it down into preparation, execution, and recovery. In the preparation phase, performer stood with both feet shoulder width apart, even weight distribution, which is never good, but I'll come on to that. Facing away from the net, and facing away from the net is never good because you never know where your performer is. So even if you played, you don't know where your opponent is. So even if you played a perfectly good shot, or you played another shot like a backhand drop, it's never good because you don't know if your performer has your opponent has predicted that movement and come in playing towards the net and can play it. But as I said, standing away from the net is never good. Execution. During the recovery phase, the performer had their racket down by their ankles. This led to kind of a poor execution at the start because when they were playing the shot, they had to lift their racket all the way down from their ankles, all the way up and take a big massive swing and play the shot. This sometimes led to improper timing of the shot. Sometimes they missed the shot completely, and if not, it wasn't entirely effective. Also, as I said, they had that even weight distribution where their feet were shoulder width apart. This meant they couldn't use that plantar flexion in order to push off the floor and hit the shuttle at the highest point because it took a bit too much energy, a bit too much time. Whereas if they were using the proper technique of your racket leg carrying most of the weight being in front and extended, while your non-racket leg was kind of behind, and your knee would be flexed and your non-racket leg would be extended. This meant then you could get a proper kind of extension motion going and hit the shuttle, as opposed to kind of taking the swing, maybe using at some point an improper extension of their racket arm, so not being able to hit the shuttle with full power and not a good trajectory at all. So as I said, they were using that even weight distribution, which meant they couldn't, as I said in the example of the overhead clear, the overhead forehand clear, that they couldn't use that momentum that they generated. So when they used that transfer body weight to get back into their base on court, they couldn't use the same thing for their backhand clear because there was that even weight distribution and there was no momentum. They had to kind of generate it all themselves. So that's the recovery phase there. The performer's legs, they couldn't push back in to get to the base on court, so the recovery was that they're always kind of haggling to get to the next shot. So if they hit a backhand clear and then their performer hit another clear to the forehand side, they'd have to kind of push off, use that plantar flexion, go back into the base on court into the forehand side, or push off the floor and go straight into the net, which is never good because that's wasted a lot more energy. Overall efficiency, as I said, their racket was down by their ankles, so it took a lot of energy in order to bring it all the way up, not only to their chest, but then to bring it up into play the shot. So it took a lot of energy to do that as well, as long as to push off and get back to the base on the court. End result, I'd say about 70% of the cases where I saw the performer use that backhand clear, it wasn't entirely effective, and they probably lost the rally, or they definitely lost the rally in that case. So I was counting about 60-70% of the time they did lose that rally. Tactical strengths, now if we go into tactics. Shot selection is one of the biggest tactical strengths I saw for this performer. He wasn't, whenever the shuttle was going overhead, he wasn't kind of just using clears, he wasn't just using drop shots, he wasn't just using smashes. This meant he always kept his opponent on their toes. So whenever the shuttle was going overhead, if you just kept playing that drop shot over and over again, the opponent that he was playing was of a good enough level, he's around the autonomous level, autonomous stage, that he'd be able to kind of predict, okay, he's going to play a net shot or a drop shot, if I lift it overhead, this means I can move my base forward, I can come further in on court and take it. This wasn't the case. Whenever he lifted it overhead, there would be smashes, cross-court smashes. slices, drop shots. They always kept the performer on their toes. They always had to have that kind of base on court that was always in the middle, so the performer could the performer that I was watching kind of play with their opponent. So he always knew that he had quite a lot of variety overhead. So he could always kind of, even if he was in a tricky situation, if the performer had hit a deceptive shot, they couldn't predict what was coming, so therefore they'd be stuck and he could still control the rally from that perspective. Shot placement as well. He wasn't just hitting when he was hitting those kind of clears, as I said, he did mix the shot selection up, but where he was hitting them was also quite good. He wasn't hitting them straight down the line, he wasn't hitting them always cross court or always straight towards the net. He was kind of moving his opponent from side to side to side because he wanted to control the rally, but he also wanted to tire his performer out because the opponent that he was playing didn't have very good muscular endurance. So if he was getting tired out, he wouldn't be able to use the power in his legs to hit those big jump smashes later in the game or hit those big smashes or the big overarm movements. So the fact that he was tiring him out from running him from side to side to side is a tactical weakness because he did kind of drain them quite a lot. If we go into tactical weakness now, the one big tactical weakness, there was another one of his service, but that wasn't such a big error. That can kind of be worked on just for a bit of verbal feedback saying, okay, you're hitting a flick serve when you shouldn't be because the opponent you're playing is standing quite far back. You should use a short serve here. But the biggest one, I think, is their style of play. The performer that I was watching had quite an attacking style of play, so when the shuttle went up, it was pretty much coming down about 90% of the time. This means that if the opponent keeps lifting it to him and he keeps smashing it down the line from the back of the court, if it's a perfectly good lift that's coming within an inch of the line, he shouldn't be smashing it because that smash is taking quite a lot of energy out of him. And if the smash isn't entirely effective, or if the opponent he's playing just reads it well, he can hit kind of a cross-court block, and then that's it. The performer then has to either run straight diagonally across the court to net, take it when it's about an inch off the floor, and kind of not dictate the rally, kind of come second in that rally and have the other performer running around, or just lose the point straight off, which is never good. He shouldn't be smashing it all the time. He should kind of assess his other options. So maybe he wants to play counter-attacking, hit a lift, and then have the opponent that he's playing hit a smash and be able to block it down the line. As I said, the attacking style of play would, one, wear him out quite a lot, and two, leave quite a lot of open space if he kept smashing it or hitting those kind of downward shots toward across court or down the line or whatever the case may be. If you move on to fitness strengths and weaknesses now, the first fitness strength I'll go through is cardiovascular fitness. Cardiovascular fitness is the ability of the heart and lungs to supply oxygen-rich blood to the working muscles, which is good. Although the performer was kind of repaying the EPIC, the excess post-exercise oxygen consumption, so he was taking in quite a lot of oxygen after the match as compared to he was before. So quite a heavy amount. He was trying to kind of repay that debt and get the lactic acid out of the system. It didn't seem to affect him too much because he was still lasting those rallies that were going on for quite a long duration in the game. Those rallies that were going on for kind of 2 or 3 minutes, which doesn't seem like a lot of time, but when you're on court, I can assure you it is. You can hit about 20, 30 shots in those time, and that is quite a lot of shots if you're playing those time after time after time. The next fitness strength I want to go into is muscular endurance, so the ability to work muscles or muscle groups for a long period of time. The performer showed they had good muscular endurance because their smashes were still finding the same amount of power at the end of the game as they were at the beginning, so he was still able to hit those big power smashes when the score was about 20-18 as opposed to when it was level right at the beginning. Fitness weaknesses if we go into now, agility. The performer didn't have such great agility when he was using that attacking style of play, especially came out as well because when he hit it from the around the head position, he couldn't change that direction at speed to get into a low forehand corner when he wanted to play a net shot, or if he'd hit a block on the forehand side, he couldn't quite hit it always on the backhand side. He was kind of hanging around and not being able to control what the opponent was doing, but being controlled by the opponent, which is never good. Speed as well is quite a key fitness weakness I saw for him. The rate at which someone moves his speed, and this links quite well, I think, to the psychological refractory period, as the opponent he was playing did at some points try and use quite deceptive shots. So he'd go towards the net and he looked like he was going to play a net shot, but he didn't. He played a lift. So the performer, since he didn't have such great speed, it took him a little bit more time. I also believe it combines reaction time as well. It took a little bit more time from when he decided to react to stimulus A, so the fake net shot, and the time he actually did react to stimulus B, the lift. He couldn't quite get from that forward position in court all the way to the back of the court, and if he did get to the back of the court in order in time to play that shot, it wasn't a very effective shot. He'd kind of try and drive it so hard and get himself back into the run, and it would hit the net, or it would go out, or he wouldn't play an effective shot at all. So if we go into the action plan for the performer now, I will come on to what area I've prioritised in a second, but what I think would be good for this performer is if we did kind of an overall assessment of the performer. He is quite skilled. He looks like he's kind of around the autonomous phase of learning in the association. He's around the kind of participation stage of the participation pyramid. He does look like an autonomous learner. He is kind of that halfway to almost going into the elite stage. I'd say he's kind of a top club or kind of low county player. He still does need feedback at some points during games, so if he was playing a game and it got to 11-all, he would need a coaching break at some point to say, look, you're playing too many backhand clears, maybe you should try doing this or this. But at some points on court, you could tell he was using a bit of internal feedback as well. So when he played an overhead clear and it wasn't going so well, he swapped and said, okay, instead of using a big, long kind of hitting motion to hit my overhead clear, I'm going to hit a punch clear instead, so he's going to hit quite a sharp movement, see how that worked out for him. And it did tend to work out in the latter stages of the game, so that was quite good. In terms of motor programs, they did look very well stored, so stored in long-term memory at some point, and his movement did look quite fluent. There were points in the game when he would hit a smash straight down the line, come straight in and play a net shot or play a kill. That was an example of a motor program stored in the long-term memory, and because that was so good and that was so well embedded within himself, he had a bit of spare attentional capacity as well. So if I apply it to the same example where the performer hit the smash down the line, come straight in and play the net shot, he was never thinking of, okay, let's play the smash, what shot should I play after the smash? Because he knew if you played the smash straight down the line, his smash was that powerful that the performer wouldn't be able to kind of get behind it and play it cross court. So the performer that I was watching got straight in towards the net and played that net shot or that net kill. He could choose whatever he wanted to do, but he was never thinking about that. He was always thinking of the third shot. So he was thinking, okay, smash, net shot, then what should I do? Should I play it to the low forehand corner? Should I play it to the backhand corner? Should I play another net shot? Should I play a deceptive shot? So that shows he had quite a bit of spare attentional capacity as well. The weakness I picked out, so we're going to go into the proper action plan now. We're going to go into the proper action plan now. So I wanted to prioritise the backhand clear. This is because, as I said before, in about 70% of the cases where the performer played backhand clear, they didn't always win the rally. Well, in fact, they never won the rally. So that's the area that not only I think will make the biggest improvement to his game, but will give him more confidence in his game, give him a lot more variety, change that style of play from attacking. So when he's hitting, when it goes over backhand, he doesn't always want to play a backhand drop anymore. Wants to play a backhand clear. He has the options to do that as well, so that would be quite good, and it would allow him to be able to perform at a much higher level as well. So if we go into time scale now, I think this action plan should run for one mesocycle of 6 weeks, but into further microcycles of 1 week. So this would be kind of generally progressive as it goes on. So in the first week, you would start off with around 3 sessions of 30 minutes. Then you could progress. So the next week could be 3 sessions of 45 minutes. Then the next one, 3 sessions of an hour. And the next one, 4 sessions of an hour. So it would be progressive. And you'd be using the principle of progression there, certainly. An example of kind of one of these microcycles would be kind of Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so giving ample time for recovery as well. You want to prevent injury of the performer, and it comes into the principle of moderation as well. You want the performer to train and performer to enhance their performance, but also you don't want to kind of increase the risk of injury, or if they already have an injury, make it that much worse, which is why you kind of give them sufficient recovery periods. So on the Monday, you'd come in, you do some routines or some progressive practices that I'll come to later. So one of them could be routines, or one of them could be shadow badminton or multi-feeds. Wednesday could be a gym session, so if we're focusing on this backhand clear, the backhand clear does obviously incorporate power, so you're kind of using those pec flies, or you're kind of using tricep dips, or bicep curls, because you are building up that kind of extension at the racket arm, which does include the biceps bracha and triceps bracha. And on the Friday it could be like a game day, so you could play condition games, so 2 against 1, or you could play normal games just to see. It would kind of be almost like, it's not a full post-test, but a post-test at the end of every week in order to see the progression during that week, so that you'd have your post-test at the end of the 6 weeks period, but you'd also have one every week, so you'd be kind of keeping constant track of how the performance is getting on. As I said, post-test at the end of every week, but not only that, there would be a pre-test at the beginning, so for example, putting the performer in a game, seeing how many backhand clears he hits over the net, or how many backhand clears he plays in a match and he wins, which is always quite good, and then compare it to the post-test at the end, which you do exactly the same test, see what the results are of that, reanalyze and kind of move your action plan or shift it in a direction, so you can shift it away from using the backhand clear to using the backhand drive maybe, but you need to know how far your performer has progressed from when you start the program to when you ended the program. If we go on to the coaching points now, 2 things need to be worked on in this action plan. Main 2 would be the technique and the footwork of the player. It's great having fantastic technique, but if you don't have footwork to back it up, then you're always going to be struggling after you've hit the shot. So the performer would need to hit the shot around the 11 o'clock position, around here, sending it a good trajectory. As I said, for the forehand overhead clear, it needs to be hitting at a good pace and a good trajectory, making sure that he keeps their opponent on their toes and also doesn't give the opponent sufficient time to move into the position in order to hit an effective shot back or a shot that will put the performer under pressure. If we go into the progressive practices now, so there are 4 main ones I've got here, and there will be some coaching points to go with them. First one is shadow badminton. So this really doesn't use any equipment at all. It just uses half a court and a net. This is basically the performer just rehearsing the footwork for the given shot. So for the backhand clear, he'd kind of do his split step, use a crossover chasse movement to the backhand corner, then come back into the centre, then do it again. So that would be your kind of part practice. Then you could, if the performer is getting used to that footwork and it is kind of becoming a motor program and being stored in the long-term memory, you can mix it up a bit so you can create a routine out of it. So you can go to the backhand corner, then to the forehand corner, then to the side, and out to the other side. You can kind of progress it however you wish and put it almost into a game situation, but without kind of any pressure of hitting shots, if that makes sense to you. The next one would be a multi-feed. So this would be a player that the performer's sparring with, or a coach, hitting 12, 15 shuttles up to the backhand corner and just having the performer play the shots at the backhand clear. So getting used to playing the shot is kind of putting in the fundamentals for that shot. You can also adapt it for intensity and duration as well. So if you want to make it go for longer or go for shorter, you can add and subtract the amount of shuttles that you use. If you want to intensify it, you can put more speed to shuttles that you're hitting. So instead of hitting one shuttle, waiting for the performer to hit it, then coming back into the base, you can just go hit. So one after another, so the performer has to kind of use very quick footwork. And if it's stored in long-term memory, that will be shown there because you'd be straight to the backhand corner, then to the middle, then to the backhand corner, then to the middle, as opposed to kind of hitting the shot, coming back, waiting for the next shuttle. Because it's never going to be like that in the game, realistically. Next practice I'd use is routine. So this is kind of trying to improve how the performer uses the shot in play, but without kind of playing so much. It would be a performer, once again, the people that I was watching the sparring with, or a coach, hitting shuttles up in a said way in order to kind of create like a rally in training. So an example would be a high serve, backhand clear, forehand clear, net shot, lift. So we're kind of putting it into a game situation, but without the pressure. The performer would benefit from this as it's putting it into a game situation, so he's using movement to get to all areas of the court. So getting to the front, getting to the back, and incorporating the backhand clear in the rest of his game, because it's good having a backhand clear, but if it's the only thing you use, then it's never going to be entirely effective in game. Once again, you can kind of modify it to suit your needs. So you can use, you can play more shots if you want to make it last longer. You can play quicker shots if you want to do the intensity. For example, you play drive, forehand drive, backhand drive, net shot, taking the shot just off the net, or a net kill, flicking it to the backhand corner, and then playing the backhand clear if you want to make the intensity that much higher. The last one would, the fourth one would be condition games. So this would be something such as 2 versus 1, where it forces the performer into playing their backhand, or any kind of game which makes the performer use their backhand more than they'd use in a normal game. So, for example, playing a game of 21, but every point that you win on a backhand is worth 2 points. That kind of makes the performer want to use their backhand that much more because they know they can win that much quicker. The last one is the adoption of specialist equipment, which I believe goes very well with mechanical guidance, because the performer would adopt a training racket which is roughly 3 times heavier than a normal racket. So when they're using this in their training sessions, if they're doing that kind of on their Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, sorry, they'd be able to use the racket, hit the shots, or generate quite a lot of power with their racket that's a couple of times heavier. Even though it would use a lot more energy, they'd be able to put the power into the shot by the end of the program. Hopefully they'd be hitting nice full length clears with that training racket, even though it's heavier, having to put more force into it, but hitting a good shot at the end of it, so that when they transfer back into using their normal racket, so the racket that's kind of 85 grams, when they're using it, they should be able to hit full length clears, and it will feel that much easier for the performer to do it. So they are using that kind of mechanical guidance as well. Throughout this whole training program, including the progressive practices, I suggest there will be periods of feedback. So coaches' feedback after practice, okay, you did this well, but you weren't kind of extending your knee joint fully on your racket leg, or you weren't hitting the shuttle at the right position still, was kind of the examples of some advice that the coach gives the performer in order to kind of make them think a little bit more. Also, throughout all of this, there will be, terms of guidance as well. So there'll be visual guidance. So if you're completing a practice, maybe another player will show you how to complete it by using a demonstration, so the performer can kind of get how it works and maybe not be confused or complete the exercise wrong, which means he doesn't get the benefits of it. Also mechanical guidance, as I said, by using the training racket, so you can get that through kind of a mechanical need. Principles of training used throughout this whole thing would be moderation. Always you want to use a training program that doesn't kind of stress the performer out or put them under any kind of threat of injury, or kind of make any injury any worse. So it will take place about 2 or 3 times a week, so allowing sufficient recovery periods. Reversibility. Badminton is an aerobic game. It does use the aerobic energy system quite a lot because it does. Rallies will go on sometimes for 3+ minutes. And the aerobic adaptations need to be frequently worked on. As I said, you can up the duration of any of these progressive practices and make it more suitable to an aerobic performer. These adaptations, the aerobic adaptations, at least reverse 3 times quicker than anaerobic ones, so it needs to be constantly trained on that one. Specificity, every action plan needs to be specific to the performer themselves. So you want to make sure that the action plan that we're doing is tailored for the performer that we want to tailor it for. So 100% of the program is being tailored towards a backhand clear, as opposed to some days coming in and working on his smash, when his smash is perfectly fine, you want to be doing it on his backhand clear. Variance links to timescale of the program as well. The timescale, as I said, would be about 6 weeks. This is because you don't want the performer to get bored during training. There is enough practices there, which you can add in some new ones, so the performer doesn't get bored, and also it's enough time to see a sustained improvement as well. So since you're using those 4 practices, using regular gym sessions as well to build up strength, maximal strength, strength endurance, dynamic strength, whichever way you want it to be, there is enough in there so the performer doesn't get bored in that 6 week period. And finally, progression. This is mainly linked to the practice. As I said, you can progress them in terms of intensity and duration any way you want. So you can make them faster, slower. You can make them last longer. So if you're providing more shuttles in the routines or more shuttles in the multi-feeds, or if you're going for a longer period of time and you're doing shadow badminton, that can all kind of link in there. Components of fitness. There are 2 main ones. Strength, in particular dynamic strength, is an essential part of badminton because the performer is using a constant change of pace in the rally. So at one point he'll kind of be moving very slowly because he'll be hitting a lot of net shots, so he won't have to move very far. At some points he'll be hitting smashes, then coming forward to the net and going back, so that's always good. And the next one is flexibility. This can aid performance as it's all based around the joints, or badminton's all based around the joints, around the shoulders and the knees and the hips anyway. So you should have a complete range of movement at these joints that is able to hit effective shots, especially when he's using that kind of abduction and rotation of his arm to hit those backhand clears or those forehand clears. So that's how flexibility is applied into this performance training regime. And that's all I've done. So those are the strengths, so skills, tactics and fitness, and the weaknesses, skills, tactics and fitness once again, and an action plan which I believe would kind of enhance performers' capability to perform at a higher level, or this would kind of set him into a higher level than most. And that's it.